0, 1.
Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Barracks, the podcast where service ends but the story begins. And that couldn't be any more true than Jordan Wylie, ex-military adventurer, author, fundraiser, and celebrity. Jordan, hi.
How you doing, Gina? You all right?
Yeah, good. Finally got you on.
I know it's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
Yeah. Because you're incredibly busy, and arguably, we could say that your life after the military has probably been more interesting. But I know what you did during the military, so it's a bit of a toss up there.
I was quite, on the military side, I was a very, just to touch on that, I guess, I was a very ordinary soldier at best. I certainly wasn't a super soldier by any means. I wasn't in the special forces. I didn't do anything prolific. No gallantry medals or anything like that. I just love playing football and sport and love travelling, and the army, as you know better than most, is a great place for that sort of thing. But my career was very average, but I did get to do some interesting bits on operations. But it was the opportunities that most people have, really. Any soldier that joins.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the key, is about grabbing those opportunities. Because I similar to yourself, I was a skier, so I wasn't going to make it as a pro skier. So joined the military and then did so much amazing skiing and felt like an athlete because I was in the Army ski team and toured the world in between operations and stuff. So yeah, you're exactly right.
It's true. Do you know what? It's funny. You just reminded me of a little story then when you said that, because I remember, like you, football was my thing, and playing, representing the regiment, the corps, the army and things. And, people used to call it a tracksuit soldier, didn't they? If you would be like, you're never in your uniform, you're always in a tracksuit walking around camp. And I remember when I come out the CO's office, when I got my first stripe Lance Corporal, and I remember the Sergeant Major at the time, he didn't even shake my hand. He looked at me and he said, "I wish I was good at footy when I was your age," because he basically saying that's the only reason you've been promoted.
Yeah. It did happen that way, didn't it? If you were good at running, wow. Yeah. I mean,
you could literally wing. I shouldn't say this, but you could probably wing your first two ranks if you was half decent at a sport.
Yeah, definitely. The signal's the same. So we're talking about opportunity and stuff. So you started in a normal school back in Blackpool, where you are now, and your childhood. Were you in the cadets?
No, I was never in the cadets. I was probably more likely to be found at the local police station than in a cadet detachment, to be very honest, at that age. Not that I'm proud of that. But yeah, I was, dare I say, I was in Beavers Scouts for a little short while in Blackpool. Again, another incredible youth organisation, slightly less cooler than the cadets, we must say.
In the 80s, 90s.
No, but amazing youth organisation doing incredible things like the cadets. And I think all those, whether it's obviously the Army Cadets are the best, as we know, but any of the cadet forces, any of the scouts, the Girl Guides, so many amazing, as we know, in the communities doing incredible work, because they're the very few places that we still find people like yourselves, role models who are dedicating their time, they're committing to helping the next generation. And I salute anyone who's prepared to, after a long day's work, to go and look after 20 teenagers or whatever it is at a detachment.
Yeah, it's incredibly tough, and I'm now a tracksuit adult instructor, if there is one, because I don't run a detachment or anything anymore. So you joined the army really early at 16, and the King's Royal Hussars, which is a cool cap badge. And so what was it? Was it just literally your appeal to it is because you knew you get to see the world? What was the reason?
No, to be honest, I was never someone who grew up thinking I want to be a soldier or I want to join the army. I always wanted to play sport and be a footballer. I guess like a lot of kids in the late 90s, every little boy's dream at the time was to go and be a footballer. And and I played at a very good level as a teenager. I was at Blackpool, Preston, trialled at Man City, Wimbledon, but I think probably due to the decisions I made at that age, I was never going to make it because I was out on the park. I was up to no good. I was drinking, antisocial behaviour, doing all the things that I guess are sort of distractions that all teenagers come across. But whether they, the decisions you make, I think, as a teenager, something I try to say in schools a lot is the decisions that you make right now are the ones that are going to impact your tomorrow and your future. And I had a criminal record for antisocial behaviour, cautioned several times and things. So for me, I'd left school with no qualifications, so I didn't apply myself in the classroom, which again I'm really ashamed of when I've like you travelled the world and seen what kids who don't have around the world, and sort of come to learn later in life that it's a great privilege to be able to go to school that's only given to very few people in the world. So I think not having applied myself and then having sort of getting involved with the wrong crowds and all that, it was more of a case of, well, if you stay here in Blackpool, you're probably going to end up back in one of those jail cells overnight, or you're going to end up in trouble. And tragically, friends and family went down that route, and people who are still people who I see when I go back to Blackpool today, and it's a very difficult cycle, as you know, coming from where you come from, whether it's Blackpool, Manchester, Liverpool, London, these pockets of society that opportunities aren't really there for a lot of young people. It's a slippery slope, I think, when you get in with the wrong crowd, and and there's things like crime that's easily accessible, there's drugs, there's all these negative sort of distractions in society, and when there isn't any opportunities, it's very easy to attach yourself to those things. And it goes back to a bit really what the cadets do, because we obviously provide that sense of belonging. And I think when you look at things like gang culture and these sort of even terrorist groups, dare I say, these have all often found from young people who are lost and they haven't got a sense of belonging. So for me, joining the army was definitely the best decision that I ever made, because it gave me not only that sense of belonging, but probably more importantly at that time in my life was things like some discipline, some structure in my life, the core values, what we often talk about in cadets. It was those things that shaped the next chapter of my life. And if I didn't go to the army, I probably would have ended up somewhere, that wasn't good for me. But I think going into the recruiting office in Blackpool, I didn't know what I wanted to do really. And the gentleman who was in the office at the time, like is often the case, he was wearing some crimson trousers, some pink pants, and he said, "I'll need you in my regiment." And that's where I ended up, I guess. And I was, for any young people watching, you need to work hard at school, because if you don't and you want to join the military, again, your options are very limited. You're not going to go and possibly do the things that you want to do, because there's only a few sort of trades within the army that will take you with zero qualifications, and often they're frontline fighting roles, whether it be armour or infantry or whatever. So if you want to go and be more technical or engineer side, you need to work hard in school still.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I was signals, and we had to have like maths and English and stuff, and luckily I was a bit of a geek. I was either in the cadets skiing or at school, but it served me well, and it's brilliant advice really, because that's similar to what I give my cadets and people who ask me. So you specialised, and then you did some pretty Gucci stuff, I think, in the military. Have you got any standout moment or mission that you can talk about that had an impact on your life going forward?
Yeah, I was very lucky. When I was in the Royal Armoured Corps, so I was in a Challenger 2 main battle tank regiment. I spent quite a bit of that time in a reconnaissance troop doing surveillance and intelligence, target acquisition, and things like that. But the highlight probably of my military career from a sort of soldiering perspective was working in an intelligence cell on operations, and dealing with the bad guys, whether it was tactical questioning or counter-terrorism operations, whatever it might have been. But and that was really just came from going and doing the right courses. I remember at the time actually thinking, when I got sent to Chicksands, I remember thinking it was, and I think it probably was the case, that nobody else wanted to go because it sounded like hard work, and you're going to be sat in a classroom, analysing data and looking at patterns and all this sort of stuff. And I think at the time I remember feeling that I've been stitched up by my troop being sent on it. Because no one else wanted to go, but it actually turned out to be one of the best things I ever did, and I was actually a lot better the sort of intelligence side than I was at being a tank soldier, because I'm actually pretty poor at fixing and DIY, and I'm not mechanically minded, but I am good with information. So yeah, worked in an intelligence cell, and it was really interesting, I guess, because when you're a frontline soldier down in the lower ranks, maybe as a private or a junior NCO, you only sort of get, as you know, get told what you need to know for the mission or the operation. But when, even as a junior NCO working in an intelligence cell, you get to see the full battle group picture, and you get to see why things are being done and why certain, missions are taking place. So it was really fascinating, and quite scary, I guess, as well, in some respects. But I think the first time I was in Iraq in 2005 was probably something that stays with me for a long time. Not necessarily because of the operations we were doing, but because of the losses we suffered. I think more, losing friends, colleagues, heroes that you were your best mates and that you'd served alongside, gone through training with. I think that's something that never leaves you, and it's something that you carry with you every day. And you realise how fragile life can be from those sorts of experiences, and that it probably taught me that, it's not really a cliche, but you have to sort of live every day like it is your last, and you have to get the most out of life. And that's probably why I love, to a lot of people, the things that you do as well, the crazy adventures, but actually they're not. We're just living life and trying to, have fun and get the best out of this crazy journey that we're on. And I think that's quite common for a lot of people who've served on operations and suffered trauma and loss. I think there's a lot of links, going slightly off topic, but there's a lot of links between, I've been reading a lot recently, between people who have experienced traumatic situations like soldiers and military personnel, and things like endurance challenges and doing crazier expeditions and adventures. I think we're always looking for that sense of purpose in aid of a good cause, but also seeing how far can we push ourselves? How far can we take this journey? What are we capable of? Because I think a lot of people, in fact, all people, are operating probably about 30-40% of what they could be operating at. But most people just stay inside the relative safety of that bubble and comfort zone. But as we've learned as military personnel, we start to thrive when we cross that barrier and go into the unknown. And it's quite an exciting place to be, I think. And I would encourage anyone to take that step at some point in their life.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've just come back from Nepal and leading a group of girls, and we were talking exactly that. It's like a lot of them have been through trauma, and they were saying this is where they strive, because they realise that life is precious, as you said, so you've got to get the most out of it. And sometimes with particularly us two, we strive and do amazing adventures which give us that opportunity to go on and strive and do more. So get out, even if that's getting out around the park or getting into Snowdon. It's so valuable.
Yeah, and I think also that sense of, you like both of us, we raise money for young people's charities, and especially the Army Cadet Charity, ACT UK. And I think when you leave the military, you're often searching for the sense of purpose again, and what your role is and how you can contribute to the world. And I think that's something, again, that a lot of ex-military people do. You're struggling to find how you can have that positive impact in the world. And I think things like helping charities by doing these incredible adventures is part of that. It's like I was thinking about it earlier before we came on this call, and I was thinking you go from like serving your country to sort of like trying to serve your community and help people more locally than as opposed to on a sort of national or international level. You're trying to go back to your roots often and help the kids that need a little bit of guidance and support.
Yeah, exactly right. That's kind of the same sentiments that I think I've come to in my older age realise why I'm doing it is definitely to a sense of purpose and paying it back. And yeah, totally.
Yeah, totally. And you know what? The best advice I was ever given was by Kay Burley at Sky News, and she said, and she'd helped me a lot over the years with like getting on the TV to do news interviews for expeditions. And I remember saying to her once a few years ago, I said, Kay, you've helped me so much with lots of different ways. I said, how can I pay you back? And she said to me, you don't need to pay me back, and you probably can't pay me back, but what you can do is pay it forward.
Yeah.
And she said the best way to ever pay someone back is to pay it forward to someone who needs a leg up. And I thought, what wonderful advice that is.
Yeah, wise woman.
Yeah.
So we've got to just touch on why and how you ended up on Hunted. Obviously, it's a little bit about your background and stuff, isn't it? So you went again a similar route to me. You left the military, went into CP, security, and then started doing your adventures, and then got picked up by a news channel, by the TV channel, by the looks of it. How did that happen?
Yeah. It was, it was. It's funny how life works, and I'd been doing a little bit of media because I didn't really do a lot of CP, but I did. I did all my courses and did a little bit, and I remember actually it's quite a funny story when I was doing. I say CP, I was doing. I got a driver job. I won't say the guy's name, but it was a Premier League football manager at the time, and he asked me, or the job was to drive him to like I think it was like the Footballer of the Year awards or something at the Dorchester Hotel. And it was the first job I'd got out of the military. I'd done my CP course. And I remember the instructor on my course, he said something like, "Oh, unless you're from London or you know London, never take a driving job in London. Don't be the driver." And I thought, I can't be that bad. I've got sat nav and all that sort of stuff these days. And I took this Premier League manager, and I got him he was about 45 minutes late for this awards, and it was all my fault. And it was like, because there was roadworks at every junction, and you can't rely on a sat nav. That's why the taxi drivers have to do these tests and that, I thought to myself, I did this one job, and I thought, I never want to be a driver in a security world ever again, because it was absolute tragedy. And luckily, this gentleman was like, he saw the funny side and he was laughing about it and what have you. But it could have been an absolute disaster. And but then I got a phone call one day, and I ended up doing maritime security for the next 4 or 5 years off Somalia, doing the sort of counter piracy operations and things, which was amazing because we got to travel the world, got to see places that I'd never seen before, and in many respects, I probably saw more action or incidents, and probably more dangerous situations than I did in the military. And because when you're out there as a privateer, you don't have the military backup, so you'd find yourself often in places where you were hiring weapons and ammunition, and it was often unregulated. It was a bit, if I'm honest, a bit like the Wild West sometimes out there, and it was a dangerous place when I look back, and I took a lot of probably big risks that I didn't realise at the time, just through being naive and not understanding how the world worked. And some friends of mine, paid the ultimate price. They were locked up in prisons in places like India. That I don't know if you remember the Chennai Six that we campaigned to get out of an Indian jail. They were there for 5 years, a couple of paratroopers and what have you. And so it could have ended very differently. But luckily, I sort of got in at the right time and got out at the right time. But I think also while I was doing that work, I was studying as well. So having left school with no qualifications, on the ships. The shifts were really easy. It was like 3 hours on, 9 hours off, and you'd get paid sometimes in a day what you might earn in a month. It was ridiculous. I think just from the timing in the market. And I started studying. I did my sort of foundation degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree, all in security, risk management, maritime security fields. And that was another thing that I think opened up a lot of doors, having the sort of coming from a sort of junior NCO practitioner, guy on the ground, to then having the academic, what you typically associate maybe with an officer who'd been to uni, it put me in a good place. Because as you know, when you're doing things like private security or CP, there's a lot of incredibly experienced SAS, SBS, Royal Marines, paratroopers who dominate that world. So coming in it as a cavalry junior NCO, I had to sort of try to work hard. I felt like I had to work twice as hard sometimes because, I was to some people, I was a nobody. I can remember being challenged on a ship by a former Royal Marine Sergeant Major who spent like 25 years at sea, and he's got this, junior NCO from the cavalry who'd never been at sea, and I'm his team leader, and you can imagine what he thought of that at the time. So it was difficult, it was tough, but I think those sorts of situations make you more resilient, and and you learn from them. But it was a great adventure, and ended up doing a little bit of consultancy. I can't big up my role, but I ended up doing a bit of consultancy on the Captain Phillips film with Tom Hanks, just as an advisor for a short period of time. and that from there really was like a turning point, because it led to me writing a book about piracy at the time, which did really well. And then I got a phone call one day, as you say, from Channel 4. Someone had recommended me that I'd met at Chicksands and said, this guy, you know, he's done a bit of media and I think he'd be good. Someone said he's a pirate hunter. I wasn't a pirate hunter. I was just trying to avoid pirates at all costs, actually. I definitely wasn't hunting them. But someone said he's a pirate hunter. He might be a good fugitive hunter. And that's my fault. Sorry, my tech. And then basically, from there, it was like, went and did like some screen test, did an interview and what have you. And then, yeah, I got offered the role. And I think, being very honest and transparent, it's like, you can, being the expert in the role is one thing, which is obviously part of the job, but I'm certainly no expert in anything. But being actually okay on TV and having a camera in your face 24 hours a day is probably 50% of if you're good enough for the role, you know. And people often look at it and they say, how did you get on there? You wasn't in the SAS, you wasn't in this, that and the other. But actually, it's a TV show. We're not going to catch hostages. We're not, we're not got balaclavas on. We're not raiding or doing compound entries. So yeah, I use my experiences from the military, from what I learned, but also did a lot of studies, as I say, in security risk management, but also enjoy working with the media, doing stuff on camera. I think it's good fun. It's a different set of skills, and use a lot of skills that you would find in the military, like the teamwork, the leadership, the command and control, and then working in the intelligence cell, doing things like the psychological side, analysing data, looking for patterns, interrogating, tactical questioning, all those sorts of things. So it's great fun, and I'm not somebody really who buys into celebrity culture. If I'm honest, I think that's part of the problem with the world today. We've got a lot of very famous people who are famous for nothing, for literally doing nothing inspiring at all. So I like what the show does for me is brilliant. It gives me a little bit of profile to hopefully work more with charities, do work with the cadets. It makes it a little bit easier sometimes to work with sponsors if you've got a media profile. That's for sure. It helps build your social media presence and do all those sorts of things. But as far as celebrity culture and things go, I'm not someone who's big into that at all, to be honest.
Yeah, and it kind of shows, because we, in this day and age, we all need some social media presence to try and raise money for the charities that we're doing it for, and it's kind of a necessary evil, isn't it? And I know you've talked about it quite a lot. You've got a book, haven't you, that talks more in depth about that type of thing with the cadets. So you've done lots of expeditions. You've got a new one looming, but you're doing it for ACT UK, and the main reason we've spoken a bit about it is because you're one of the national ambassadors for the Army Cadets. And what does that sort of mean for you? I know you get out quite a lot, like the other two ambassadors are always out and about. But what does it mean to you personally to be an ambassador for the Army Cadets?
Oh, it's a great privilege. It's probably the greatest honour that I carry, alongside, I guess, being a dad, being an Army Cadet, a national ambassador is an honour. It's something that I take very serious. Every time I put something out, whether it's online or in person, I'm always conscious of that there's young people watching this. Very rarely, if ever, would you ever hear me things like swearing or getting involved in politics or giving strong opinions on things. For me, before I click send or post or before I speak, I try to think, is it going to inspire someone? Is it going to educate them? Is it going to engage them? Is it supportive? Is it encouraging? So it's a role I take very seriously, and I dedicate a lot of my time. Most of my days are spent either going to see something to do with cadets, whether it's to represent the cadets, talking to a business to tell them about what the cadets, who they are, what they do, and how they could possibly help us by giving us maybe some funding for things like adventure training activities. Tomorrow, for example, I'm in the city with Metro Bank, and my purpose is the whole day in the city with Metro Bank is to literally tell them what the cadets do and how they could possibly get involved, whether it's as CFAVs, whether they might like to support us with purchasing kit or supporting. So I dedicate probably more time to cadets than I do to any other aspect of my life for the last few years. So it's a great honour. It's a great privilege. It's one I take with utmost responsibility. And I think it's important to also highlight the role of people like yourselves and all the other CFAVs out there, because without people like you, this system doesn't work. So at the moment, we're talking a lot about growing the cadets by 30% by 2030. And we're trying to recruit lots of cadets. But what we have to remember is without the adults, we can't recruit cadets. So, you know, if someone's out there and they're listening to this and they're thinking maybe they're a veteran and they've left the military, but they still got that little itch where they want to put on their uniform and, you know, and march around or do a bit of field craft, I think the cadets is an amazing opportunity to do that. Without the commitment of having to go and deploy for 6 months overseas, or without somebody telling you off if you've not done something. So I think you still get that little buzz of the military if you're a veteran from the cadets in a weird roundabout way. But even if you're not in the military, because as you know, you don't need any military skills or anything. Often civilians are even better sometimes than the military personnel, because they bring a whole different suite of skills and characteristics that we don't have as military personnel. And I think often civilians who come in are a lot more empathetic and understanding to some of the situations they find themselves in. And people who are in business, there are leaders, when I speak to commandants and deputy commandants, these people are like running multi-million-pound operations. It's amazing, really, the diverse array of skills that CFAVs have. But I think ultimately it's important for people who might be listening or watching to know that we're not trying to recruit or develop good soldiers. We're just trying to build great citizens and members of society. Ultimately it's a youth organisation, and the benefits to society are incredible in terms of, it's been proven many times over now that where there's a cadet detachment, there is more likely to be reduced crime in that area. There's less obesity, there's less pressure on the healthcare system, the judicial system's not having as many incidents to deal with. The cadets do great things for this nation, and our job, I guess, is to shout about it and tell the world about it.
Yeah, and that's what I definitely do on a podcast. And it's amazing how many inspirational veterans started their life with the cadet force as teenagers. And there's so many things we could pick up on there. For me, I see, and this is the greatest gift as a CFAV, as an adult instructor, is when you get that little 13-year-old and you have him in your detachment or head in the detachment, and they leave at 18 as strong, confident adults with amazing life skills, first aid, DFE, qualifications in leadership, and they go forward, and then they still want to speak to you and shout across, the street when they're with their mates 5-10 years later and go, "Mom," or "Sergeant, this is what I'm doing." And a lot of the time it's not military. It's, they're a manager of a shop, or they're in uni. And I think that's the biggest gift is what you're as a cadet adult shaping. And that outweighs all the politics, because politics within every organisation, all the hard graft when you're parading every night and thinking, why am I doing this? Weekends away, it's so rewarding as an adult instructor. And then as a cadet, what you get from it is unbelievable. You might not realise it at the time, but when you go and stand next to your peers at 18, you've got so much more to offer the world.
100%. I couldn't agree more. 100%.
Yeah. So if you've got as you say, if you've got a teenager, get them in the cadets. Either one of them, but the army's better. So you're raising a lot of money for ACT UK, which is the Cadet Force, Army Cadet Force Charitable Trust. And this next challenge, would you say it's your biggest one?
Yeah, I think so. I think you've always that one of the challenges in this game is you've always got to be going bigger and better, haven't you?
So hard.
Otherwise it's even more difficult to get support and sponsorship because you're almost going backwards
Yeah.
if you're not. So this is an amazing challenge. The concept. I'll leave in we're now about 7-8 days from now, and the idea is to go and attempt to climb a series of mountain peaks that have never been climbed before. So the first ascents, they're completely unnamed, unexplored, untouched, which is incredible, really, because I think in this day and age, it's very very hard to find things that someone hasn't done. As we know, everyone's done everything these days. So.
Yeah.
So I think to find some true exploration and to be a bit of a pioneer is very exciting. It's a multidiscipline polar expedition, so we're going to have to use a pulk or a sled and pull the kit. So we've got to start in skiing gear, going to be skiing to the mountains and then turning into climbing mode and going into climbing gear. And then there's a little surprise that's going to happen as well while I'm out there, which might even extend the expedition, but I won't say too much because I don't want to ruin surprises, because I'll use it as part of the fundraising, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. So your training's been pretty arduous, obviously. How many in the team that are going?
Yeah, so there'll be me and one other person, so a climbing partner, who will be an expert in sort of glaciers and crevasses, and a bit like, I guess, the Himalayas or the Alps. If you're going to somewhere that you've not been, and there are certain restrictions and requirements, so I need to go with somebody on this particular expedition that is qualified and competent in the polar, in Antarctica specifically. Originally, I was trying to go alone, which was probably quite naive, but the Antarctic authorities won't let me do that because of the risk. So I will have a climbing partner there, which is great, which also means you can hopefully capture good content as well because there's somebody else with you, which is half the battle when you're fundraising these days, whether you like it or not. You've got to be taking photos, doing videos, and it's quite, as you know, it's quite stressful because it detracts from what you're actually trying to enjoy and take on. But I will head down to Punta Arenas, which is sort of southern Chile, next week. It's probably take me about 2.5 days just to get to southern Chile because of the amount of flights and what have you I've got to do. But I'll meet Lou Rudd, who's an SAS explorer down there, who's our sort of expedition manager from Shackleton. I'm on the phone to him actually after this call, who doing more kit checks and things. He's sort of my expedition manager who's been helping me and supporting me, which is great because he's a world record breaking polar explorer in his own right. So he's been there, done it, got the t-shirt. So I'm just tapping into his knowledge and his know-how and tips and tricks and things. But yeah, ultimately it's about trying to raise 100,000 for the Army Cadet Charity, which would, to give people context, that would pay for about 3,500 DAV bronze courses for free if I could raise 100k. It's very difficult to raise that sort of money when especially been fundraising for a long time, and it gets harder and harder every year. I think people have almost, dare I say, charity fatigue now after COVID, where it's and also we got cost of living crisis and things like that. It's more and more difficult every year. You've got to be more creative, more inventive. People want value. They don't just want to donate anymore. They want a return on whatever it is there. If they donate £1,000 to my page, they normally want me to do something for that £1,000, which is understandable, whether it be go and do some talks for them or appear at an event or put together, I don't know, an activity. So you've got to work hard for every penny in fundraising these days, as you know, and I'm on about 43,000 at the moment. Hopefully we can bump that up while we're out there and try and get to that 100. But, who knows, what will be.
Yeah, I mean, I think I reckon you're going to get it, because doing what you're going to do is incredible. Yeah, a little bit jealous, but but yeah, absolutely incredible. I've spoken to another person who went up peaks in, I think it was Iceland, who'd never been named, and that is just wow. It's just as you say, this world is full of people doing amazing stuff, and to find something that you can do that nobody's ever done is an incredible challenge. So
amazing. I've just got myself actually this week a set of those. Have you seen these new Oakley Meta glasses?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I've just bought some of these, and so hopefully, what I would like to do is is be able to capture the moment through my eyes for the cadets and the schools of arriving on top of a pristine peak and planting a flag and capturing that moment of, recording through my eyes. So that's quite exciting. But there's that many different tech things. You've got I've got a Starlink being delivered from the cadets so I can get internet and broadcast back. I've got things like these meta glasses. You've got all the GPSs and things. So it's just more kit though that you've got to carry, which is more weight.
More weight. Yeah, definitely. I wonder whether they'll operate at that temperature.
Well, it's a good question. I guess we'll find out next week.
Yeah, so they should be sponsoring you. They're big enough.
I know. I told them that as well. But as we know, most of our lives, or my life certainly, is knocking on 100 doors every day, and maybe one might just open a little bit to see if you can get your foot in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I know we haven't got much time because you've got to really, sort your kit out and all that, and I get that. So looking back at your journey, what would you tell your younger self? You didn't have any GCSEs, you were joining the army, and what would you tell your younger self now you've been through, an amazing career, written books, entrepreneur, not yet a film star, but
not yet. I think I'm a long way from that bit. I should sign you up as my agent.
Yeah.
You're bigging me up. Well, I don't think it's justified, some of this.
Yeah. Next step. That's your next challenge. The next James Bond. So, so what would you tell your younger self if you could get back to that 16-year-old?
What would I tell my younger self? I think I'd tell myself that you don't have to have it all figured out. That's part of the fun. That's part of the adventure, part of the journey. And I've come to learn that, because I used to get quite depressed thinking about the future, thinking, what does it look like? And I had to have, all my ducks in a row. But, I'm 42 now, and I don't even know what I want to be when I grow up still. I'm still trying to work that out. So I think regardless of your experience, of your qualifications, I think the most important thing for a young person is attitude, having the right attitude, that willingness to learn, that willingness to take a chance, that willingness to back yourself and believe in yourself. I think attitude is everything, and also cut through the noise, I would say, because there's a lot of people in the world who will tell you what you can't do. There'll be a lot of detractors. There'll be a lot of jealousy. There'll be a lot of people who will have a pop at you. So be thick-skinned, be resilient, and always evaluate where the feedback's coming from, and before you let it enter your headspace. But I think, having the right attitude is probably the most important thing for a young person right now. And not everything you see on social media is real.
Yeah, exactly. No, sound advice, and stay off the phones as much as you can. I'm sure they're better than us, to be honest.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
So I ask everybody these. So who was your superhero or role model when you were growing up? It can be fictional or can be...
probably my dad. So, but I don't want to big up all the bootnecks too much by saying a bootneck was my superhero, because I never heard the end of it.
No, but your dad's a nice one.
My dad. He was a Royal Marines commando. He was a Falklands veteran, but most importantly, he is a bloody good bloke with good morals and values. So my dad, and I think more recently, not someone who I ever met or knew, but I think with this Antarctica expedition planning for the last 2 years, I've read a lot about Sir Ernest Shackleton and become a bit obsessed reading his books, listening to the stuff. This is why I'm terrible at tech, Gina.
Let's hope he guides better.
Yeah. Right. So Sir Ernest Shackleton probably is someone who I've been inspired by for the last year or two. Definitely. Yeah, that wasn't really quick fire, was it?
No, it's fine. It's fine. So, is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't talked about? I know we.
No, I think
a lot.
I think we covered a lot there. I think just role models again, just maybe touching on role models. I think they're a bit of a rare species now. They're endangered in society. We got to protect them. We got to look after them, and we got to signpost young people to the right role models, because there's a lot of these so-called influencers and celebrities that are pushing out messages that aren't good for society. They're certainly not good for young people, and they don't help the world at the moment. So I think, places like schools, places like the cadets, the scouts are full of good role models. So, if you're a parent or an adult or a young person, take a look at those organisations and environments, because that's where you're most likely to find them these days, not on a screen.
Yeah, definitely. And some of my ones are cadet instructors when I was a cadet. I still remember their advice today. So, yeah. Because as you get older, you do get wiser. If only you knew at the time.
Yeah.
So where can we find you online?
My website's jordanwyley.org, and my social handle on all platforms is at Mr. Jordan Wylie. Instagram, Facebook, and I'm normally posting bits and pieces on these days.
Yeah, and Act UK is obviously does a lot of promotion for you as well, so they're a good one to link up with.
Yeah, definitely.
So the podcast is called Beyond the Barracks. What does Beyond the Barracks and your journey mean to you?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, what does Beyond the Barracks mean to me? It means taking all the lessons that you've learned in your service life in the military and trying to apply them to your future. I think actually what we said earlier probably fits quite well with this, in the sense that when you leave the military, you go from serving your country, but beyond the barracks, why not step up and serve your community? Go and do some good and help the next generation. So I think that's what it means for me.
Yeah, I love that. Brilliant. So amazing luck. I'll be following you online. I'll be bugging you when you get back to get the gen and have an exclusive or something. But yeah, amazing. I'm in awe of what you're about to do. It's going to be a brilliant journey. So good. Best of luck.
No, thanks, Gina, and thanks to you as well. You're doing amazing work, not only for the cadets but in the veterans community. You're spreading positivity and good vibes throughout the world, which we need more of. So, huge respect to you. Keep doing what you're doing, making a difference.
Brilliant. Thanks. It means a lot coming from you. So I'll let you go. And thanks for coming on, and good luck.
Brilliant. Cheers, Gina.